The topic is, does the principle break the exception, or does the exception break the principle? So it's something you encounter all the time in debates. So you state a principle, but I debunk it with an exception. And you can even find this, Stefan Molyneux did it with his own statement, like, there is a cycle of abuse, which means there is a cause and effect based transmission mechanism for child abuse going through a generation. And then he follows up with, but this is not causal, because I'm an exception to this rule. Because there's an exception, the rule is not valid, there's not a causal rule. And he then says, so there are other factors at work, but factors is just another word for causes. So it means there's a causal cycle, but it's not causal because I have an exception. So there must be other causes causing it. Hope you're still with me. So this is kind of a sort of rule, or a kind of statistical rule, maybe. Just like minarchism is a kind of sort of rule against the initiation of force. It says initiation of force is bad, except for these and these services in society. Note that Stefan condemns this in art when art portrays it that the abused can flourish and become leaders under some circumstances, because it is spitting in the face of those who suffer the normal consequences of abuse, which he considered have to follow. And that is indeed something that is strange, but in a way you can say that he is an example that you can step out of the cycle of abuse. You can get out for some reason. Now, does the exception break the rule, or rule break the exception in this case? Let's look at something simpler. Smoking causes lung cancer. Now, if you say this, then someone always comes up with Uncle Harry. And Uncle Harry is a person who smoked 2 packs a day and died at age 95 in a bar fight over a 21-year-old ex-girlfriend of George Clooney. So, is it here that this exception of Uncle Harry breaks the rule that smoking causes lung cancer, or is it the other way around, that the rule must break the exception? Is it a semi or sort of rule? Is lung cancer under the control of free will? Well, I think it is not, and I don't think anyone really thinks it is. And what you do here is that statistical significance plays a role. Statistically, there is a connection between smoking and lung cancer, and it is just interesting that if there is Uncle Harry, that what causes Uncle Harry to be able to escape this? And it might just be that the molecular effects of smoking and DNA are such that there is a very small chance of DNA being altered into a cancerous form, and that this small chance increases when you smoke a lot. But it could be that you're just if you have a lot of people, then there will be an Uncle Harry that did not encounter that. It could be coincidence, just like it could be coincidence that Warren Buffett is a very successful investor. It could just be that he was lucky to ride the biggest bull market of history. It could be statistical fluke. He will always have these with large numbers, and the strange thing is that they attract lots of attention. And but they do not undermine the rule that there is, even though the normal cases within the rule attract much less attention. Let's look at something even simpler, like the conservation of momentum, because it is so easy to think that humans form an exception. And if you look at the conservation of momentum. If you have two balls that collide, then everyone understands that the momentum is conserved, and before the collision and after the collision. But it gets a little bit more difficult if you see a rocket being launched, but then, because at first the rocket is on the launch pad and there's no momentum at all, everything is standing still, and then you see a rocket being blasted off to space, and you'd say, well, there is momentum being created there. But if you look at it more carefully, you will know that on the tail end of the rocket a lot of gases come down with a very high speed. And if you do the speed of the gases times the mass of the gases and the speed of the rocket times the mass of the rocket, you will find out that the momentum exactly sums up to zero again. So no momentum has been created there. But it's just a little bit difficult to see the gas, and you will not see the mass change in the rocket. Also on the outside it looks the same. And you can then look at the human, and what happens if the human kicks a soccer ball or throws a stone. In the beginning there's no momentum whatsoever. The human is standing still in front of the soccer ball, and you blink your eyes and you see the soccer ball shooting forward, and the human is still standing still. And you would say, wow, the human has created momentum. And that is also what the ancient Greek thought. They said, yeah, the human, when he throws a stone, he creates the momentum. But they knew something weird was going on there, because they say, well, when you throw it down a hill, then it keeps on moving even though you stop throwing it. So they knew that it was kind of that there was something wrong there. And what is going on there with the human? Did the human create momentum? Does the human have some exceptional quality of surpassing the laws of nature and being able to create momentum? No, because let's repeat this experiment in space. Then everything is suspended in space in weightlessness, and or you fly in this airplane that goes on a parabola trajectory and simulates weightlessness. I think they're called the vomit comet. You put out your cameras, you say, kick the soccer ball, and then the guy kicks the soccer ball, and you see the momentum of the soccer ball being created, but you also see the soccer player now going slowly in the other direction. And if you add mass times speed and mass times speed, you will see that no momentum has been created. So what happens if you're on Earth? Is there something special on Earth? No, neither. Because the momentum that is put into the ball is also on Earth put into the soccer player in the other direction. But because he's standing on the planet Earth, he increases the momentum of the Earth a tiny little bit, and that is just enough to cancel all the momenta. And when the soccer ball hits the Earth and stops, is by friction stopped from rolling, then the momentum is put back in the other direction of Earth again. And here, so also Bastiat's lessons also apply to physics. Bastiat says in his broken window fallacy that the broken window does not create wealth in the economy because the glazier now has a job. But you also have to look at the tailor that did not get to make a new suit for the guy whose window was broken. You have to look at the unseen also, not just focus on the seen. It's so easy to focus on what attracts attention, like the exception and the seen. The unseen in the soccer experiment is the change in momentum of the Earth. And you always have to take that into account when you get to this, or presented with these so-called exceptions, that it does not automatically mean that the rule is invalid. And when Einstein, for example, figured out his theories of relativity, and sometimes people came up to him with a piece of empirical evidence that seemed to contradict his theories, and he would usually respond very calmly with it will go away. God is subtle, but he is not malicious. When Einstein spoke of God, he meant the laws of nature. And he had so much confidence that the principles had to be right, that he knew that these empirical exceptions would indeed be broken on closer examinations. Okay, please let me know what you think.